Okay, I'm gonna talk about 5 tips to build a long-lasting Scala open source project. And by the way, this talk is not about reactive things at all, but I believe that this session will be very helpful if you are interested in working on open source projects. And my name is Kaz. I have been a Scala enthusiast for 8 years, and I came from Tokyo, Japan. And this is my 5th visit to San Francisco Bay Area. I love San Francisco Bay Area a lot, and also I love open source software. So I started my own project like ScalikeJDBC, Skinny Framework, Elba Scala, etc. And also I took over the maintenance of existing projects like JSON4S, Scala 8, and sometimes Scala Tract. Today I will specifically talk about ScalikeJDBC. This is my most long-lasting open source project. I have been working on this project for 7 years. ScalikeJDBC is a relational database client library in Scala. And the concept is, as its name shows, the Scala-like, in other words, Scala idiomatic way to talk to database. And also I aim to build practical database library, so it provides easy-to-use APIs and also has less dependencies apart from JDBC API and also Scala language itself. And I have been working on this project for years, so the ScalikeJDBC has now many functionality, but the basic usage of it is still quite simple. You need to know only 3 steps to issue database query. Firstly, you build a SQL object by using unextended string interpolation or type-safe DSL. So in this code example, the SQL object Q is built with SQL interpolation. That is very safe way to build SQL statement because it is free from SQL injection vulnerability. And secondly, you define function to extract necessary values from JDBC result set. In the code example, two tuple, the function extract 2 values from 2 value ID and name from the result set. And finally, you can perform SQL execution or database operation with implicitly passed database session. In the code example, Q SQL object mapped to tuple. The list here is type of output. So list single means option or traversal, etc. And finally, you can perform the side effect by calling apply method with session. It's also possible to use auto commit or transaction wire session when you perform modification queries like insert, update, delete. So that's the overview of the library, and also there are many other options in the same field. As you may know, the most popular library in Scala is Slick, according to the number of GitHub stars. Number 2 is Quell, and number 3 is Doobie. And ScalikeJDBC is ranked 4th. Not bad. So but I think maybe most of you found out this library today. So please try that out. The very simple in-memory database example on the top page of ScalikeJDBC website, scalikejdbc.org. And if you like it, or if you have any feedback or questions to me, please feel free to reach out to me at any time during this conference. I will be here all day today. So as I said, ScalikeJDBC project turned 7 years. So 7 years, it's quite long. So we had many major upgrades. We had 5 Scala binary or major versions. We started with Scala 291, and currently the latest stable version is 212. And I'm working on the preparation for 213. And also we have the 5 JDK version, started 7, and currently latest one is 11, and the 12 will come soon. And this is not major version, but we had 3 JDK API upgrades. And we dropped JDK 7 support maybe 2 years ago. At that time, we added new API that were introduced into JDBC 4.2, or JDK 8. And also we experienced migration, SBT migration. The ScalikeJDBC project provides an SBT plugin which generates Scala source code from existing database tables. The SBT plugin is very beneficial useful when you start a new Scala project, which has to talk to existing database table. So we started the development of the SVT plugin when SVT version was 0.13, so we needed to migrate to SVT1. So that's a brief history. And here are 5 tips I'd like to share today. And I'd like to walk through these tips one by one. First one is find your lifework project. This is not a technical tip, and also this is not specific to Scala open source project, but I think this is kind of foundation or basis when you really want to work on the same thing for a long time. And I have been seeing many projects terminated due to the main author's personal changes, personal events or social life changes, such as changing job. So the main author no longer uses Scala at work. Having a family. Having family is one of the best things in your life, but I also have a family, so I can imagine the situation. It's more difficult to secure time for your open source projects. And also if the author was a student, school graduation is a very big event. So, but those big changes in our life are inevitable. So we need to, if we really want to work on the same thing for a long time, maybe we should find and focus on this kind of lifework project. And also, we should be aware of the difficulty to find appropriate successors of your project. So even if your project has many users, sometimes it can be challenging to find appropriate successors of your project. So ideally, we should consider how to continue with the project somehow. Okay, so number 2 is be careful to add Scala dependencies. Yeah, this is very unfortunate, but I have to say this because this is very critical. If you have so many Scala dependencies, okay, I'm assuming that you are creating some library or framework. And if you have so many dependencies, you should be aware of that you are in the same boat with so many other people. So the Scala measure upgrades and also cross-building can be pretty difficult. For example, if you have so many Scala dependencies, and new Scala measure version has been released. In that case, you have to wait for all the dependencies new version releases before you release your one. So it causes a significant delay for your deployment, and also that will be very stressful and very inconvenient for your users. And regarding cross-builds, the situation can be a little bit complicated or can be worse. So if just one of your dependencies doesn't do cross-builds or doesn't do exactly the same cross-build as you do, you cannot do, maybe you may have to compromise your cross-builds. For example, one of your dependencies does cross-builds, but only for Scala 2.10 and 2.11. In that case, you cannot do cross-builds toward 2.12, just one of the dependencies. So it's a very tough limitation. So if you want to do cross-builds, you should be very, very careful about adding new Scala dependencies. And what can we do to avoid those kind of situations? I understand this is not very clear and you really don't like it, but I'd like to suggest consider choosing Java dependencies over Scala if you create library or framework. Because I think this is very realistic trade-off. And it will bring huge benefit to your library maintenance. And by doing that, you can make Scala measure upgrades and cross-builds much easier. But of course, there are downsides, so you have to do a little bit dirty work, such as handling null values in your source code. So this is quite a simple example. It shows how to deal with null. This part shows that how to work with Java collection object. You can use Scala collection Java converters to convert Java collection object to Scala collection object pretty easily. So just calling as a Scala method. But you should be very careful about the possibility to have null like this. So null as Scala can be also called, and in that case, the Scala as Scala method returns null. So even if this is Scala collection object, the value is null. So it's very, very, very terrible pitfall. So you should use option everywhere. And also the similar thing can happen with primitives. So this example shows that the value j is Java lang integer and value is null. The second line shows that unexpected odd boxing. So you cannot detect these kind of things in compilation phase. So you should be very, very careful about it and also use option appropriately and call appropriate conversion method. I think this is a little bit annoying, but this is not very difficult. So once you understand it, you can do that pretty easy. But it's kind of a pitfall. So next one is stack-based binary compatibility. So what is binary compatibility? So for most cases, the many libraries are binary compatible. So in that case, we don't see any runtime linkage errors. But otherwise, if you break a binary compatibility, the painful situation can happen. So you will see painful runtime errors, runtime exceptions, like no such method error, no such field error, runtime. So it's not compilation error, so you cannot detect the issue by the compiler's effort beforehand. So you may see the situation in the production system or staging environment. So we should avoid it. So I think there are two things to do. If you are a provider of some library or framework, and at the beginning of the project, you will commit a lot of changes. So in the phase, of course, you don't have to guarantee binary compatibility, but once you release the very stable version, it's about time to have explicit policy about binary compatibility guarantee to your users. And I'd like to I recommend you to have the policy like guarantee the binary compatibility among patch versions. That will be very common and it's very reasonable. After define the policy, to surely guarantee the binary compatibility, you should use appropriate tool, that is MIMA. Oops. Sorry. MIMA is very powerful tool, and MIMA stands for Migration Manager for Scala, and MIMA can detect syntactic incompatibility by comparing current source code in your SVT project with the previous already released versions. The fetching the jar files from Maven Central and compare the binary and detect unexpected potential issues. And MIMA was created and has been maintained by lightband developers. And I have been using MIMA for years, but MIMA is very stable and very powerful to detect issues. And this is a very simple example to how to set up MIMA in your SVT project. So you just add SVT plugin. After that, you define the setting. This is a very essential part. So you need to define which version or which artifact should be compared. Just by doing that, when you run test or when you do compilation, the MIMA automatically runs. Number 4, provide crossbuilds. And I also mentioned about crossbuilds in the number 2, but I think crossbuild is very important if you really want to work on the project for a long time and also support as many users as possible in a different situation. So the reality is that we cannot always use the latest Scala version. So you can imagine the situation by thinking about Apache Spark. As you may know, Apache Spark took 2 years to support Scala 2.12. Recently, they supported Scala 2.12 since 2.4.0. But the similar situation can happen due to any other reasons. So we should be aware of those kind of people. And there are 2 things to do. I'd like to suggest to support latest major Scala version and also its previous one. Specifically, they are Scala 2.12 and 2.11 at this moment. And if you are already familiar with cross-building, maybe you already understand how to use source main Scala dash binary version, like 2.11, 2.12. But I'd like to encourage you not to have so many files under those directories. Because if you have plenty of code under those directories, the testing all cross-builds can be very hard or can be very time-consuming, because it's not only switching the binary version, but also you need to test the quality of the different implementation. By the way, that means you can have multiple different implementation for same APIs using those directories. So yeah, so continuously working on cross-builds can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So if you really need to have so many files under those directories, before doing that, you should consider the refactoring existing APIs or reconsider the structure of the modules. The last one is have effective CI builds. Why do we need it? I think there are two reasons. The first one is to reduce review cost of pull requests. If your library or framework or whatever succeeded to acquire many users, maybe you will receive so many pull requests from users or contributors. So it's about time to think about save your time or improve your work efficiency to review the code. And after review the code, you will merge the pull request. But at this moment, you need to have confidence to do that, because the changes may bring some regressions or unexpected bugs or some incompatibilities like binary compatibility or cross-building issues, etc. So we need reliable evidence which ensures there's no problem with it. So two things to do. Sorry. First one is very, very basic, but if your project doesn't have any cross-builds, CI builds, you need to enable it anyway. You can use Travis CI or Circle CI for free for open source projects. I always really appreciate it, so there's no reason not to use it. And after enabling it, you can automate everything apart from code reviews. We have to do code reviews by ourselves, but apart from that, we can automate everything in principle. So checking binary compatibility, consistency of code styles across builds on multiple JDKs can be automated. And there are so many patterns, so to cover all patterns, you can use matrix build on Travis CI and Circle CI. What is matrix build? This is quite simple example to show the real example of cross builds, matrix builds, sorry. So you can see the 3 Scala major versions and the 2 JDK version. So in this case, the 6 pattern will be supported. For all 6 patterns, the same build script will run. And not only that, you can have additional patterns like this. So this combination is not supported in the 6 patterns. So you can add any kinds of any other patterns like this. And also in this example, not only compile running tests, but also checking the source code inconsistency. So you can anything in the script part. Okay, so that's the 5 tips I shared. And prior to this presentation, I created an SBT project template, and which includes all techniques I share in this talk. So I believe that the template should be a very good starting point for you if you are new to these kind of things. And you can create your own project by SBT new command and specify my repository's URL path. Okay, so I believe that you found that ScalikeJDBC today, so please try it out. And if you like it, please increase the GitHub star, almost 1,000 now. And also 5 tips. let me review. So find your, it's outdated, but anyway, so lifework project, or be careful adding Scala dependencies, and binary compatibility, cross-building, and CR builds. Actually, those topics are very basic, but it's pretty important to continuously work on updating those kind of things. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.